I strongly stand on the affirmation side of the resolution that tests are better than homework. And I'll prove this through 3 contentions. First, I'm going to define what tests are. Tests are tools to measure learning abilities. My first contention is that we can see what we learned. Tests come in many different forms, so we can have the chance to apply our knowledge in many different ways. For example, being able to tell different plant cells on your own is a different test. Doing it on paper as homework, but practicing it by studying in science class is one way we can test ourselves. My second contention is that it encourages students to work under pressure for future professional settings. For example, interviews. Interviewers ask questions that you have to answer right away after the question is asked. My last contention is that students are less likely to cheat on tests than homework. Homework might not accurately show students' understanding as they are allowed to use outside resources, for example, notes and other students' work. For example, debate rounds are a type of test. It's hard to cheat because judges can tell pretty easily. For all these 3 contentions, I strongly stand on the affirmation side of the resolution that tests are better than homework.
Today I stand on the negation side of the resolution, tests are better than homework. I have 2 contentions. My first contention is stress and anxiety. This is because in homework you get to learn at your own pace. You have more time to understand how to do different parts of your assignment. An example of this is in school. Usually when students leave school, they have 8 or more hours to do their homework, while compared to tests, you only have your class period, which is max 1 hour. With this little time, students become more and more stressed and panic. And this is important because the more panicked or stressed you become, the worse you do. My second contention is less feedback. This is because on homeworks, you're supposed to practice what you learned in class, while on tests, you're supposed to show how much you actually understand. And an example of this is on state testing. Students learn all year round just to take this test to see how much they actually remembered. And this usually makes you more stressed. And with tests, you usually don't get any feedback. And with no feedback, it means you don't get to see what you actually need to work on. While on homeworks, since you're practicing the lesson you learned that day, teachers give you feedback to see what you actually need to work on. This is important because with no feedback, you're not able to improve anymore. And for these reasons, I stand on the negation side of the resolution. Tests are better than homework.
How can homework, which varies difficulty, be a more consistent assessment than standardized tests?
This is because on tests, usually students are stressed or panicked, which means that they don't get to show their true abilities, which means they get worse grades. Can you clarify your second contention?
My second contention is that tests can encourage students to work under pressure for future professional settings. For example, interviews. You're under pressure to answer questions, much like a test. Which might tests, despite their stress, offer a more focused evaluation of students' understanding than ongoing homework assignments.
I would also disagree with this as well, because in homework, you're just trying to see if you actually understand what you're doing. While in tests, as I stated earlier, with stress and anxiety and having panic attacks, usually students are not able to perform as well as they usually do. Is 8 hours of homework less stressful than 1 hour of testing?
No.
How?
Because kids can do homework at school, or they can do homework while they're in the car or something. Could you clarify your main points?
My 2 contentions were the stress and anxiety and the less feedback. My first contention was about of stress and anxiety, how you get more time to work on homework while you barely have any time to take a test, which causes stress and panic attacks. My second contention was feedback and how on homework, teachers get to tell you what you need to specifically work on and for you to learn, while on tests, they just tell you if you did well or not and you forget about it.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Would you agree that after a test, students usually don't go back to practice that same lesson?
Sorry, can you yeah.
After a test and the teacher tells you your result, do students usually go back to see what they need to work on?
Yes, they can. Today I stand on the affirmation side of the resolution that tests are better than homework. And I'll prove this through three contentions. First, let's define what tests are. Tests are tools to measure your learning ability. First contention is that we can see what we learn. Tests comes in many different forms, so we can have the chance to apply our knowledge in many different ways. For example, being able to tell different plant cells on our own is a different test, doing it on paper as homework. But practicing it by studying in science class is one way we can test ourselves. My second contention is that it encourages students to work under pressure for future professional settings. For example, interviews. Interviewers need to ask you a question and you have to answer it right away after the question. This relates to the contention because you need to work under pressure to answer the questions. My last contention is that students are less likely to cheat on tests than they are on homework. Homework might not accurately show students' understanding as they are allowed to use outside resources, for example, notes or other students' work. For example, debate rounds are a type of test. It's hard to cheat because judges are able to easily tell. For these three contentions, I strongly stand on the affirmation side of the resolution that tests are better than homework.
But I would disagree with this because homework shows you even more. Because with homework, teachers are able to tell what you actually need to work on. And with being able to see what you need to work on, therefore, you better understand what you're learning and you become better. And my opponent's second contention was that it encourages students to work under pressure. But even though this is true, that the harms outweigh the benefits. With stress, it equals to long-term health issues, which could be like panic attacks, which could greatly disadvantage students in the future. And my opponent's last contention was that students are less likely to cheat on tests. But I would disagree with this because stress makes students panic. And when students are panicking, they will do whatever they can to pass their tests, which equal to cheating. So this refutes their third contention. And for these reasons, with my contentions showing the negative benefits that come with stress and anxiety and the benefits of being able to learn more with feedback, for these reasons, you should vote for the negation side of the resolution.